I had piano lessons when I was 4.5, and it was a very influential teacher on me. He lived his life as a dedicated musician, really worked, and that certainly left a lasting impression on me. When I was 8, I listened to the radio and heard a real good boogie pianist. And so then I would start improvising. In fact, that very day, I was very fascinated with it. And then some people, friends of ours, brought over an Army captain. This is like 1943. I'm about 10. And he was from New York, played very good piano and very good boogie. That was very popular then. And so we played 4 hands at the piano, and this lasted for a good 2 hours or more, and he showed me a lot of interesting tricks. They forced me to go to bed and get to sleep, and that night I said I was going to be a piano player on a big band, you know. I got interested in the saxophone, and for a few years I was playing that because you can put air into the saxophone. It's like singing, and you can bend the tones. The expression is much more alive than the piano, which is the mechanical instrument, and it takes years to learn how to make this thing sing. I think the saxophone period for me helped me develop into making the piano sing, and it's not easy to do. And there was more work opportunities if I played piano. And so then I left the saxophone in the case. My first job outside of Little Rock, outside of the state, was in Panama City, Florida for 2 weeks. And with Mose Allison, a quartet, I played piano one set and he would play trumpet. The next set, he would play piano, I would play alto, and he would also sing. And good drummer, good bass player. And after Florida, we traveled in Louisiana. It was the summer of 1950, and so there were many jobs we could pick up on. I say that we drive down the highway in 2 cars with the equipment, the instruments, and we see a nightclub on the highway, and we just pull in and say, listen, we got a group, let us play for you. And we pick up a week or 2. And then it's over with, we drive down the highway and do the same thing again. And had some gigs. Then the Korean War got really hot, and so I had to go into service in October of 50. And that was for 24 months. I come back from Japan, Korea, and went directly to Houston, Texas. And within the first week, I was working with Jimmy Ford 6 nights a week for 6 months. And I would, at that time, I would have rated him as about number 3 in the country, Charlie Parker, Sonny Stitt, and then Jimmy Ford at that time. And so it's a marvelous education for me. And then I left Houston, direct to Los Angeles, and played there a few months and got a call to go to Las Vegas, where I had a trio for 9 months on the wrong side of the tracks. It was an Afro-American community, and I was playing there 6 hours a night, 6 nights a week for 9 months. But in the audience would be Nat Cole. He'd have his month engagement at the Sands Hotel, and he would be there, and we would exchange a few words in the conversation. His bassist would sit in, and I would play with, it was Charlie Harris. It was an excellent bassist. Lena Horne would come the next month at the Sands, and now you have George DeVivier on bass. So they all came over to the club because it was an Afro-American club in that community. And it was a golden opportunity for me. Also, she'd have Chico Hamilton on drums. Then Artis Shaw's group would come in, Hank Jones on piano. He would come, sit in. Tommy Potter was the bassist, that worked with Charlie Parker. So it was just a marvelous time. We went to New York, and it was better for me at that time. Put a trio together with Hal Gaylor and bassist and Billy Bean on guitar, the incredible talent, Billy. We did a recording trio for Orrin Keepnews of Riverside. And nothing materialized, no gigs. And so then I get a call to work at the Playboy Club. And that was so great for me. Everyone thinks that Playboy Club, it's not a jazz club. Well, I understand that. But the deal was that they did not have a permit, cabaret license to be able to have singers at that time. And so you had to get a pianist who could play 4.5 hours and the people stay there. And just duo, brand new Steinways. They were tuned twice a week by a Steinway technician from Steinway Hall. So they were perfect. So about 11 months duo. The next 9 months solo piano downstairs. And then they'd throw me upstairs for a year in another room. There were five rooms in this one address. 5 clubs in this one address. And Kai Winding was the musical director. He hired me. And finally he left. And Sam Donahue came in. And he was an excellent tenor saxophonist. And we would work in quartet. Really good, really a good quartet. Ronnie Bedford on drums, he was one of the best in New York. Bill Crow, bassist. And it wasn't a jazz club, but Oscar Peterson would come in there. I'd always, when I became musical director after Sam left, and I would always encourage the musicians in my group to take off when they had a better paying job or whatever, and they'd send me a substitute. I'd have Ron Carter on bass. I'd walk in expecting the regular bassist, and it's Ron Carter. Tony Williams. Oh. Then I had a quartet there with Joe Farrell. Excellent musician. a joke. Monty Alexander worked there. Herbie Hancock would come in frequently. So it was a good atmosphere for a pianist. It was not the half note or something, or the gallery for a jazz gig, but we were playing as best as we could. It was after I came to Europe with Thad Jones. That was for 2 years with that. George Mraz on bass. It was just a beautiful band. Another golden opportunity for me. And that first year we recorded Drifting in for Enya label with a duo with Mraz. And came back to Europe again with the band. I was promised in writing a 3-month tour duo with Mraz, and I quit the Thad's band and went to Sweden, had a couple of weeks there that turned out to be a month, to wait for the tour to start, 3-month tour to start with Mraz. It never materialized. So I was stranded in winter, in February this time, in Stockholm. I was in Scandinavia for 7 months, and I had 18 nights free. The rest I worked. Red Mitchell was there. So I had a lot of good work there. Okay, I come back to the States and Mingus calls, and I worked 3 months with him. Everything was fine. He was very well, he was a gentleman in every way, and there's one thing, you must call him Charles Mingus and never Charlie Mingus, but you know, you say Charlie Parker, and then you have to think Charles Mingus, and I made a slip on an intermission one night, and I said, Charlie, and man, he looked like a raging bull. And I knew that it was dangerous. He didn't say a word, but he was just waiting to explode. And got home within the week. SFB calls from Berlin and says, will you come? They say, will you come to Berlin to work with the orchestra? I packed my bags, called Mingus. I knew he was upstate New York, and he wouldn't have time to drive 90 miles to punch me, and got on the plane and went to Berlin. And I think coming to Berlin was the best thing for me. I had the job. I only worked 78 days the first year. And I had all of that time to practice on the Steinway concert grands, perfect instruments, and got a lot of practice in. Did the recording the next spring with Alidar Peggy Synchronicity. And the SFB finally ended after 4 years. And I was asked to teach at the Hochschule. Again, that was a golden opportunity for me because I love to teach. I feel teaching is more important than performing, because the people you teach, they can teach others for many generations. They can go on, and the history of piano teaching is like that. It's an open history book. And so I really enjoyed teaching at the Hochschule. That was for 10 years. Then I retired. And it seems that I don't have 1 minute free. I was coming by here when I met you. I had just finished a long interview, email, that went on for about 4 or 5 months. And I came in to return the CD to sit down. He introduces me to you, and now we have an interview now. And so I started working on that. I've been very busy in the retirement part, yeah. One objection I have is that the great teachers did not have the time to write down the way they taught. Chopin did quite a bit, and I think he had absolutely the best approach for teaching a beginner how to play the piano. I have a book here that I can show you pages. This is the book, and many, many, many pages, 200 and something. And it will continue to grow. I have maybe nearly 20 pages I can add to this now. I hope to in the next 5 or so months. I punch in each note on the computer. It is heavy, it's very expensive to print, so I have it online as a free download. The purpose is that often you will have a very talented pianist who improvises, but they don't have the money to have a teacher, a good teacher. I hope that they will be able to develop some technique to be able to play well enough to be accepted by a good teacher. You cannot find a better jazz club. Soundproof, recording quality, the Kuliks. Rudolph built this. He had this piano renovated. He bought it brand new from Steinway Factory. I think it sounds better now. And it's a very special atmosphere with Sidal managing it. I mean, the only thing more I could ask for is that it would be a little larger. But it is just it's really nice to sit here packed and listen to someone play. And I've heard many great things here. But they have an excellent technician. Rene Georg, he renovated this. There's one other club that I know of in Osaka, Japan, the Overseas Club. It's a Yamaha that they have, but they have a technician that sits there and listens and touches up a few notes on the intermission and stays there and listens again and touches up a few notes, and then he goes home in the evening after a concert. It's run by a pianist and full of students. It's like a society. But I think if you talk to the people that come in here, you would find that many people know each other. It's kind of a little society in Berlin here. and it just has very good vibes, as they say. I think Sidal really makes that happen. I think never trying to do something different. I don't try to do something different. I try to work in the most logical way. And I think the history of music, all of the problems that any composer, and they all face some kind of problems in writing, the solution, the resolution is always what is the most natural, logical way. How should it be? And that's what they wrote down. That sounds very generalization and rather vague, but that is what it is, to do it the most logical way, not trying to do something different, something completely new. Let me say that I feel that the inspired moment is not the greatest moment at all. That you can take the inspired moment is supposed to encourage you to continue working on that idea, and you refine it, which is a very bad word to many listeners. They don't like the word refine. I don't mean to make it sterilized. I mean to make it better.